Look at all of the things. We have things there. We have things here. You know what that means? It's showtime.
Oh.
Oh. O is correct.
Okay, let's do things.
Things go well. Might be showing her my O face. Oh, oh, oh. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, whatever.
All right.
Welcome to Star Trek Asterisk, the weekly podcast where we watch Star Trek and then talk about it.
And hopefully not so long this week.
Yes, we're gonna try to keep it shorter this time because we went so long that we had to do 2 videos for some reason.
We had two
So
videos. We had it was a mess.
terrible.
Yeah.
So today we watched Datalore, Angel 1,
And 110010001.
as I have explained before. I hate numbers,
Steve hates numbers. He's a
so
writer, as opposed to me, an IT person and apparently a developer who likes numbers.
yes,
Go figure.
I
And
can't.
binary, especially, I suppose.
I remember 314 as pi, and that's as far as I go. 3.14. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, uh, Datalore.
Datalore.
This is a classic episode, obviously, because it stars one of the fandom's favorite characters. I think
Yeah.
this is we kind of get a background of Data
Ooh, and we
when
get a
we.
special guest appearance by Brent Spiner.
Yes, yes. So they run their way to a mission that's near Data's home planet or whatever, and they get done with that, and they decide, hey, let's just hop on over to Data's planet for a while and see what's up.
Yep.
So they land on the planet, and everything is desolate and dead, and they can't figure out why. So they go to where Data was found. Apparently, after Soong created him, he was just what do you call it? Unconscious, I guess. And Soong just left him on this planet, and they found him later. Anyway, they go to this place where there's just like a concrete slab or something
Yeah.
where he was laying, and they take a look around, and Geordi finds this door in the back of this cavern that they're in, and they go in, and it's this huge, really sophisticated laboratory. What do they find in the laboratory?
They're looking around and Data's starting to remember all of this stuff. And they open one little area and they find like this looks like a clear acrylic like almost like a casting mold.
Yes.
And it perfectly fits Data's face. And so they're like, "Hey, look, it's you, Data." And so they're exploring some more and Jordy finds this area. He's like, "Hey, check it out. It's a storage compartment."
Storage compartment. Storage compartment.
I'm not doing that again. I'm not falling for that.
The what? The what?
Damn Klingons. And they open this up and they see all these parts for another Data. It's like another model of Data.
Yeah.
And so they basically call him his twin brother. And so Data, being the curious person that he is, or curious android that he is, he has this feeling. He's like, I need to know whether this works, whether it can live. And so random bearded engineer guy leads up this team to start putting the pieces together. Then Data volunteers to let them examine him some. Finally put this thing together. And hey, it turns on and the thing works. And he's kind of creepy, actually. He's got this weird facial twitch, but he understands human diction and grammar and colloquialism in a more in-depth way than Data does.
He claims to be more perfect than Data.
To be more perfect and more human than Data. So they take him on board the ship and they figure, well, let's talk to him and sort of learn some stuff about him and maybe he can be useful to us in some way. So he decides, well, he wants to check out the computer, and Data's like, okay, that's fine, whatever you want to do. And so he starts learning everything there is to learn about the Enterprise. In fact, while the images are flashing, we see some images of the old Enterprise, which is fun. So we start to notice Lore's kind of evil.
Yes.
He eventually takes Data and he drugs Data. Um, which inadvertently powers Data off.
Hmm.
Well, intentionally, I guess. And after he powers Data off, then he starts parading around as Data and saying, "Oh, Lore attacked me, and I incapacitated him and shut him off,"
Right.
which is interesting because Data actually told Dr. Crusher how to turn him off
Right.
in the strictest of confidence
Yeah.
because he didn't
Yeah.
want anybody to know that he could be shut off.
Right.
And then here comes quote unquote Data telling them, "Oh, I turned him off." It's like, that's a little weird.
Yeah.
And they started to notice little inconsistencies. And Wesley's like, "That's not Data. That's Lore."
Hmm.
And they're like, "Shut up, Wesley." And he's like, "I'm just saying."
They're
It's
literally saying, "Shut
they're
up,
saying,
Wesley."
"Shut up, Wesley." And then he's like, "Listen here, I'm trying to tell you." And his mother goes, "Shut up, Wesley." And so everybody's telling Wesley to shut up, even though he's actually right, as usual. But he's being kind of a bitch about it.
Yeah.
So we learned that this crystalline entity came to the planet where they were, where Data was found, and
Yeah.
actually drained all of the life out of this planet. Come to find out, Lore learned to communicate with the crystalline entity and showed it how to get everything it could off of the planet.
Hmm.
And so the crystal entity actually had gained respect for Data and said, "Oh, well, hey, let's communicate." So they started talking. So Lore decided to draw the creature to the Enterprise because there are hundreds of people on the ship from which it could draw this energy and suck the life out of everything.
Hmm.
So Lore gets the thing out there, and this thing comes up quick.
Yeah.
This thing is moving insanely fast, and it comes up on them, and then Lore, posing as Data, says, "Well, I can communicate with it," and they're like, "Okay," and so Riker says something to him, and he goes, "Correct, Riker," which is our first clue, which is their first clue. And the captain tells him, Lore says, "Well, I can go try to show it that we're more powerful than it by going and beaming up a tree from the surface and then beaming it out by the crystalline entity so it sees our kind of power and
Well, and then shoot at it.
then shoot
Yeah.
at it, yeah,
Yeah.
so it can blow up." And so Picard says, "Make it so," and Lore goes, "What?" He's like, "Do it." So they're starting to question it now. And Wesley's like, "See," and Picard's like, "You know what? Go away." And he says to Crusher, he says, "Go with him." She's like, "What, are you kicking me off the bridge?" He's like, "I'm telling you to go see about your son." So it's fine, whatever. They end up sneaking over to Data's quarters. They find Data there. They power him back up. And Data's like, "Everybody calm the fuck down. I got this." So they go to the transporter or to the cargo bay where Lore is about to get the crystalline entity to where it could, get through the shields
Yeah. Yeah.
and suck all the life out. And while he's in the middle of talking to it, we kind of sneak up on him, and he's like, not so fast." And he kind of throws them around. He points a phaser at Wesley, and he tells Dr. Crusher, "Leave or I shoot your son." And so she finally decides to leave. Data's like, "Look, I'll stay with him. I'll make sure he's okay." She goes to leave, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, bing!" And then, like, lights her arm on fire. It's like, bing, bing. Nice.
That's the phaser sound.
Bing. That is the official phaser sound now. So, so Data and Lore actually get into a fight, and they're going back and forth, and Wesley's just kind of standing there watching everything go on. Data pushes Lore onto the transporter pad. He yells at Wesley. He's like, "Now!" And he transports him out, like right before he fires a phaser beam at him, at Data. And then Lore is just beamed out into space. And the crystalline entity's like, "Oh God!" And he runs away.
Yeah. Well, he's lost his ability to communicate with anyone, so there's no point in him being there.
Well, yeah, and he, like, it could tell that Lore was gone, so it's like, "Oh God!"
Yeah. Right.
So it got scared and ran away.
Yeah. gone.
Whatever.
We'll get back to that
Well, yeah, yeah.
in
Well,
another season.
yes.
But anyway, yes.
Yeah.
So this is a good episode.
I like this episode. I like Lore. He's creepy.
Mm-hmm.
He's very highly malicious, and he's fun though.
Yeah.
He's fun in a really creepy way. I think he's an excellent villain.
He's the Dexter of Star Trek.
He is. He is. And you made the point while we were watching it about how a psychopath is someone who doesn't feel emotion but pretends that they do in order to fit in with society. And this is like the ultimate example of that. An android, a computer-based life form that pretends and acts like it feels, but in such a way to where it's like, dude, you are weird. Stop that. Stop doing that.
Right. And
So-
and you made the point that Data is like, he's not pretending to feel anything. He's honestly trying to learn what it means to feel things. Whereas, for example, a psychopath would laugh at a joke that is supposed to be funny, but Data would just tilt its head.
Yeah. Data's like, I do not understand the humor.
He'd be all totally upfront about it, like I just don't get it.
I don't get it. Do you remember the cartoon A Pup Named Scooby Doo?
Yes.
They'd always there'd always be jokes and Scooby would laugh. He'd go, hee hee hee, I don't get it.
Yes. But we get to learn a lot about Data in this episode, and that's always fun.
And we learn some of his backstory too.
Right, exactly.
We learn about Dr. Singh and we learn about
Soong.
Soong, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Yeah.
And we learn about Lore and how there were multiple models made. At least we know the two.
So far.
So far. That's why I said at least. So yeah.
Yeah. It's good. Okay, let's go on, because we have to make this short.
Okay.
Angel 1, right?
Yes.
How did this start? Because I wasn't here.
This started out with they're on this like diplomacy mission. There's it's a planet that is it turns out it's much like
It's a matriarchy.
it's a matriarchy. It's set up much like the Betazoid homeworld, where the women are in charge, but it's like an elected sort
Right.
of thing.
Right.
And you have like different mistresses, and there's like the elected one who's the one at the top, and yada yada. And so the Federation's like, look, we need to go play nice with them because we haven't talked to them in a long time, and we should play nice and maintain good relations. And so,
Well, also they have to find these people, right?
yeah. They have to find these people. Just will you let me finish?
Well, I'm just saying that's the primary reason they're going.
I know. Well, they have to make nice.
Yeah.
And they learn that that there may be survivors of this crashed cargo vessel that are on the planet. So they go and they beam down, and Counselor Troy is sort of leading the effort at first. Being from a matriarchal society herself, they figure it would be good.
And being a woman.
And right, well, obviously, she is definitely a woman. Anyway, so is her mother. That's another story for another week. So at one point, Riker chimes in, and immediately you can sort of see the prejudice. You can see the sexism in their culture again on Angel 1 against men, because they immediately distrust Riker and they don't think he knows enough because he's a man. And in fact, at one point, he asks to inspect their computer system, and she says, I don't think you would understand it. It's a little too advanced for a man like you. So Data's like, hey, I'm an android, even though I'm anatomically male. She's like, yeah, all right, fine. But so they come up with this sort of plan to figure out, okay, how are we going to find these guys if they're here? Because they have a sneaky suspicion they're there. How are we going to find these guys, and how are we going to convince them to let us leave with them? Well, in the meantime, their little council takes a vote, and they're like, okay, not everybody was in agreement, but fine, we'll tell you. We know that there are 4 survivors here. We just don't know where they are. They've been hiding out from us for a long time, for like 8 years or whatever they've been there?
Well,
Something like
yeah,
that.
something like that.
So you can, if you find them, then we'll talk. And Riker's like, all right, fine, whatever. How about I meet with you tonight and we'll talk about all this and we'll work it all out. She's like, all right, I think that's fine. So in the meantime, Deanna's talking with them too, and she's like, "Oh, by the way, hey Riker, you have to wear this thing," and it's like a little sparkly thing that all the other men on the planet are wearing. And so he's like, ah, "Fine." So he puts it on. He comes out, and I mean, he looks absolutely fucking ridiculous. And like Tasha comes up, is like she's trying to hold back her laughter. She's like, "Ooh, you look kind of sexy." It's like as he walks out, they just bust out laughing at him. So he goes in with the meeting with the mistress, and he talks to her. He's like, "Yeah, look, we would like to go ahead and start our scan of the planet so we can find them and do what we've got to do." She's like, "Okay, that's fine." She's like, "But I want you to stay here with me so we can, work on our diplomatic relations." And he's like, "Oh my!" So he's like, "Okay, well, let me tell them because they can handle this." And he's like, "Hey, go find them. I have to stay here for diplomatic relations." And they're like, "What?" It's like, "You got this. Just I'll talk to you later." So they start looking for them. They start scanning for them. And while Riker's working on his diplomatic relations. And so, in the process, the mistress is like, maybe men aren't all bad. And she decides, well, let's. Okay, I think this will be okay for now. So they start getting or get into the process of starting to get freaky. In the meantime, um, they find the survivors. They beam over, and the guy's like, what was his name? We'll just call him MacGruber
Okay,
because he looked like MacGyver's brother.
that works.
And MacGruber's there, and he's like, "Oh, hey, we were waiting for you guys. We didn't know when you get here." They're like, "Hey, come on, let's go. We're rescuing you." He's like, "No, you're not. We don't want to be rescued. We like it here. So go the fuck away." And they're like, "What? What are you talking about?" He's like, "No, we're not leaving. So get over it." And they're like, "Oh, well, crap. We can't just make you leave." So they're like, "Fine. We'll just." They call back up the ship. They're like, "Beam us back to where we were. Just the three of us. He won't come over. So whatever." As soon as they beam back, we see that one of the council women is there, and it's his wife. And so we know that.
Or lover.
Well, he said we've
Oh
taken
yeah.
wives.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
So he's with her, and so she's sort of she's being a traitor to her own people because she knows where they are, and she's fraternizing with the males, and so they're like, well, fuck this. So they get back, they interrupt sexy times, and they tell the matriarch, they're like, look, I'm sorry, they won't come. And Riker's like, well, make them. And they're like, we can't. And she's like, well, fine. Now that we know where they are, then we're going to kill them because that's how it works. And they're like, well, you can't kill them. Well, yes, we can. That's our law, and that's just how it works. All right, fine, whatever. So they end up bringing them in, and it's like, wait, why did you tell them where we were? And it's like, oh, it wasn't hard to figure out where you were after we saw this traitor here sneaking out to go see you. So they found out by themselves, and they're like, okay, you're going to be sentenced to death. And it's like, wait a minute, what? And so, Riker makes the case. He goes, look, aren't you an advanced society? She's like, yeah, we have laws. And he's like, okay, but does it have to be, is death like the only option? And they even demonstrate the fact that that they had like this thing that once you put your hand on like this crystal ball thing, whatever's between this area just disintegrates. It's gone.
Highly effective.
So, meanwhile, back up on the ship, they've got trouble brewing. What is it? They had like what was it they had on the way? They had Romulan fighters or Romulan birds of prey on the way.
There were Romulans on the way to a station. They had to meet with the Romulans.
Right. They had to meet with the Romulans because things are kind of getting tense with them. So they have to meet with them to make sure, or no, it wasn't a meeting. Like they were going to be under attack.
Okay, well, yeah,
Yeah.
meet them in battle.
Yeah, okay, meet them in battle. And in the meantime, there's this virus that's spreading up on the ship, and it's mutating like every 20 minutes. And Dr. Crusher's like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. So they're like,
That's
well, you guys
exactly what he
can't
did.
beam back up. And he's like, well, Data, okay, Data, you have to leave before it's too late. And Data's like, okay. So later, they're like, it's the next day, and they're getting ready to, to execute these refugees, and Data calls down to him and says, "Hey, what's going on?" He's like, "I told you to leave." He's like, "No, you told me to leave before it was too late, and I figured out when it's going to be too late. So we have about 45 minutes left." He's like, good job following my orders precisely, actually. So they go in. Riker makes one final plea, and the matriarch's like, you know what? Just wait. Maybe we can find a better way. And they let them go, and it's like, but they'll be exiled. We won't execute them, but they will be exiled way out there, and they'll have to figure out stuff, by themselves. She's like,
they have been doing for
right.
a while now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, so, if we can't stop evolution, maybe we can at least slow it down. And so, because they're, just like anybody else, they're afraid of fucking change. So,
Yep.
Beverly figures out why the virus is spreading the way it is and how to stop it. And she, gets everybody at least on the mend. And they beam back up, and they leave just in time. And happy day for all.
Hooray.
Okay. That was really long. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
There was a lot of stuff that happened, though.
Yeah, there was a lot. But I like how you didn't mention anything about the sickness plot until, like, the end.
Well,
because that was part of my gripe, is because they got this thing going on again where there's two stories that don't really match up at all.
That don't match up. Right. There's no... The sickness thing is useless. We'll get it out of there. Like... Whatever. Nobody cares. Go away, sickness. Nobody likes you.
But, I mean, other than that, I mean, the two stories, both of them are pretty good. You get to see, like, a little bit of how I keep trying to think of it's misogynistic, except it's against men. There's a word for that, and I can't think of what it is now. I don't know. Yeah,
I know what you're talking about, but I forget.
Anyway, it's
the term.
You get to see a little bit of that. You get to see, like, the role reversal of of our history, and see how it...
Men's suffrage. Men should have the right to vote.
Right. And it's cool to see how that kind of progress can be made in a an opposite culture from us.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see how a disease can be spread from inside the holodeck. Is that where it started?
I think it started like through the what are they called? The atomizers? Yeah, the atomizers that put out like the smells in the holodeck. Yeah. And like once it's inhaled, then it starts to mutate and replicate.
Right.
It was really weird, but kind of interesting, even though it was a bullshit subplot.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally two stories. There's getting sick and having to meet the Romulans, and then there's
down on the planet trying to find these refugees and make sure they don't die.
And it's like, well, I've got this idea for 2 episodes, but I don't have enough material to make the 2 episodes, so let's smash them into one.
Yeah, I hate that. I hate when they do that. Oh.
Next one is the number 1. The binars, the
11001001.
Yes.
You're welcome.
And we start out in this one where they're going into space dock over Earth, and they're just doing routine maintenance, trying to
they've got computer maintenance to do.
The computer maintenance
that they're actually overdue for.
Yeah, and especially on the holodeck, since they've, as we've mentioned, been having problems with that.
Yeah. They are forever having problems with that goddamn holodeck.
More trouble than it's worth, probably. That's why it hasn't been on ships until now.
It's true.
Anyway, they go into the space dock, and the maintenance crew comes in, and it includes these two little guys who are joined at the hips, and they speak. They like finish each other's sentences,
Yeah.
and it's really kind of weird and creepy. So but they do an efficient job in fixing the computer systems. So
And the reason for that is because they're actually a race of people called binars.
Yeah.
And what happened was they actually were able to join with the computer on their planet. Like there's this one main computer that runs their planet, and they were able to join with it, and because of that, they were able to really increase the speed at which they learn things. And then they've actually developed their own really high-speed language that they talk back and forth with, and they even have little devices that they wear that buffer the information so that if they don't receive it all in, when they need it, they can process it.
so it's kind of like a cyborg type of thing.
Yeah.
To an advanced degree.
It's like it's a technological symbiote.
Yeah, you can do that. So anyway, they start on the holodeck first, and they set everything up, and Riker is kind of lingering around and seeing what's up. So hey, what's going on? And they're like, well, we just finished the holodeck. Want to check it out? So he pulls up a program, and it's this jazz bar in what was it? It was in Louisiana, New Orleans.
It was New Orleans, 1950s, 40s,
Something like that.
And it's like this little dive bar.
Yeah.
And so Riker sets up, and he's playing jazz trombone with these other two guys, and he creates this woman, this very sultry woman who calls herself Minuet, and she starts engaging him. And he's like, wow, you're like way more realistic than any of the other holograms or holodeck simulations we've had before. And so they start talking, and he plays for her, and it's it's like kind of creepy how realistic it is. Yeah,
creepy to us, but apparently Riker's really
apparently he's into it.
And so, okay, he's busy on the holodeck, and meanwhile the binars are still working on the ship. And was Data there? I know Wesley was kind of looking over their shoulder, seeing what's up.
Yeah, Data was he was up there, but he left and he started painting.
Right.
He was painting. He was trying to learn how to be expressive. Remember it, because at one point Riker was in there, and he's like, this may actually prove to be worth to some historians someday. A blind guy teaching an android how to paint.
Right. Geordi's trying to teach Data how to paint and
how to be expressive.
Yeah. So while this maintenance is taking place, Data is kind of in charge of the ship.
But I mean, they're docked at Starbase.
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
Exactly. So he's busy and painting.
And what happened was
yeah. And Wesley notices these fluctuations going on. So Data and Geordi finish up the painting, go to engineering, and there's something going on involving antimatter getting
there was
out.
the magnetic containment field around the antimatter chamber was like weakening.
Yeah.
And so if that happened, the whole thing was going to blow.
Exactly.
And they couldn't risk that, especially to Starbase. So Geordi and Data's like, okay, look, we have to get out of here. He's like, well, what about the captain? He's like, if the captain's not here, and they check with the computer didn't find him. So he's like, look, we have to do this. So they set the ship to an automatic course, so it would back itself out of space dock and go as far away as it could, so that when the explosion hits, it doesn't harm space dock.
Right.
So they evacuate the ship and they get everybody off, and so they're like, okay, so hey, where's Captain Picard and Commander Riker? And they're like, we thought it was with you. It's like, he didn't beam over? They didn't beam over? No. So they're still on the ship, and the ship is like leaving, it's like out the door.
Right.
And so they're like, oh crap, and it warps off.
And we forgot to mention that Picard has actually gone into the holodeck too.
Yes, Picard did. He wandered into the holodeck and started talking with Riker and Minuet.
Yeah.
So they try to communicate with the ship. They don't get anything because nobody's there.
Right.
So back on the ship in the holodeck, Picard's like, all right, well, we should go. And Minuet's like, no, stay a while. He's like, no, we really got stuff we have to do. She's like, no, you can't leave yet. And they're like, we have to. And they open the door. She's like, don't go. And they realize, like, after they open the door, the ship's on red alert. They try to call up to the bridge. Nobody's there. And so they're like, you're part of this. What's going on? She's like, I don't know. I was just programmed to be here to be as a distraction.
Just programmed to keep you here, and now that's...
And now, well, I screwed that up, so whatever, you guys. And so she's like, all right. And they're like, all right, fine, whatever. So they start to run around and figure out what's up. And they realize, okay, the ship's been taken over. They don't know by who or by how many. And they're like, okay, we got to set the thing to self-destruct just as a safety precaution.
Right.
So they go to engineering, they set up self-destruct, and then they go up to the weapons room to arm themselves to figure out what's going on. They try to go up to the bridge, realize the bridge doors are locked. They can't get into the turbo lift to get up to the bridge. So they decide to beam onto the bridge. And they beam there, and they find that the Binars are laying there, like, dying. And so the Binars basically, like, you know, with their last dying breath, say, help us. And they look at the computer, and there's all of this insane data, this, like crazy gobbledygook stuff on the screen. And then they realize they're now orbiting the planet, their planet, Binus, I think it was.
Something like that.
And so they're like, okay, we got to figure out what's going on here. They call back to Data, and they're like, Data, there's this file here. We got to figure out what's in it. You know, we need to figure out what's going on. And he's like, well, you have to have the passcode for the file. And he tells him, look for a binary pattern of some kind. And they figure out this file has the name 11001001. That's the name of the file. Like, well, what the hell are we supposed to do with this? And they go back to the holodeck, and they're like, Minuet, what do you know? And she's like, what happened was one of the stars in this binary system was going to go supernova. And the EMP, the electromagnetic pulse from this thing, would have wiped out their computer and all of their information, which would kill them all. She's like, so what they did was they had to find somewhere to put all this data and save it so they could save themselves and then bring whatever it was back to store the data. Since the Enterprise is the only mobile computer with a large enough memory capacity to store their data, they had to take the Enterprise. And they're like, well, what do we do? She's like, transfer the data back. So they figure out, well, okay, we've got to get this file open and put it back down there. And then they do, and like the Binars kind of wake up after the computers, the computer at the core of their planet is powered back on. And they're like, well, we really appreciate it. And it's like, well, you could have just asked. And they said, well, there was the possibility you would say no.
Right.
And Riker's like, well, there was a good chance we would say yes. And they're like, we couldn't take that chance. Yeah. We either had to do it or not. And he's like, okay, that makes sense, because their binary way of thinking.
Yes.
Everything to them is a yes or no, 1 or a 0. So either they had to take the chance and ask, or they had to do the thing that was going to give them the best possibility of the outcome.
Right.
And so they did it, and everything's happy, and they're like, okay, we'll take you back to space dock. We're really sorry. And they get back, they finish up all the maintenance and everything, and they're like, okay, go off to your little trial now. And they're like, okay. And that's pretty much it.
Well, and then Riker goes back to the holodeck to see if Minuet's still there.
Oh, yeah, and she's not. Sad face for Riker. He couldn't get any virtual poontang.
It's interesting that Riker's getting action in 2 of the 3 episodes that we've watched today.
I'm telling you, man. Riker's such a whore.
Oh, he even dresses like one in Angel 1.
He does. That's slutty man cleavage.
So this episode was... It's all right.
Yeah, it's all right. I liked it.
It's not a bad one.
Yeah.
I like...
Go ahead.
Well, I like how they introduced the idea of the possibility of a holodeck program being more than it seems.
I like that they introduced the idea of a race of beings that actually achieve singularity.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, because they became one with the thought processes of a computer. So they literally achieved singularity. They hit the singularity. That's kind of freaky, but kind of really cool.
Because it works for them.
Yeah.
They found a way to
absolutely.
make it work. I mean,
it's for them. It's the best case scenario.
we never really hear from them again. But
No, but it's the concept is cool.
the concept is cool. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have any gripes about this episode.
I don't either. I like this episode.
It's a good
There's
one.
a nice, solid story, and it ended well for everyone.
And it's got a Sean Connery lookalike.
And it's got a Sean Connery lookalike. That was great. So I think that was that.
That's that. We didn't have any messages today, but you can still call us. Hailing frequencies are open.
Incoming transmission.
At 513 asterisk. That's 513-278-7475.
And you can go there, call us day or night whenever you want, and leave a message, and we will answer it on the air.
On the air.
Go to our website, thegreenasterisk.com. There are links to YouTube, our Tumblr, where you can find us. You can buy my book. What is it called? Dark Matter? Yeah.
Dark Matter. You don't know the name of your own book. Good job, Steve.
But, well, it's a short story, really.
Yeah.
And what else?
Well, there's the app. There's the app for Windows 8. If you guys are using Windows 8, you can go to the Windows Store and you can download the Green Asterisk app now with more video goodness.
Ooh.
That's right. There's a featured video section where you can watch some of our latest videos that are up on our YouTube page, which if you scroll over to the contact section, you'll see the Green Asterisk on YouTube right over here. And the Green Asterisk Live, blah, 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 all the other fun stuff.
Glorious.
Like tweets and blog posts and all that are still there, so that's fun. It's
Yes.
fun for everyone.
And it looks good, too.
It's pretty, isn't it? I mean, that's a pretty damn app for being a nice, simple little guy.
Yeah.
I like him.
Very nice. So, join us next week. Let's see, what are we watching?
What are we watching?
It starts off... Oh, where did it go? I lost it. Oh, here we go. No, yeah, it starts off with Too Short a Season.
Okay.
And then we'll watch When the Bow Breaks. And then Home Soil. I don't recognize any of those titles.
I don't either. That's why
So we'll find out what those are all about. I'm sure I've seen them before. I just don't remember them.
Yep.
Yeah, so... we're taking a break next week, right?
Yes, we are taking a break. Is it next week? Or is the week at... No, I think it's the week after.
Oh, is it?
Let me check the calendar. I have this written down somewhere.
It's one of these weeks.
No, next week we're on. It's the week after, the 28th. We are out that week because that's the week of Christmas. So we're taking that week off.
Christmas, New Year's kind of.
Yeah, Christmas, New Year's, like right in the middle there. We're taking that all. Yeah. Because we can. And that'll be our last break for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're taking the 28th off. But we will be back the first Friday of the new year.
Hooray!
So you can catch us next Friday the 21st. Catch us right after the new year and go straight on through. And we'll hit Warp 9.
Glorious.
All right.
So, until next week, remember to help control the tribble population.
Have your tribble spayed or neutered.
Live long and prosper.
Goodbye, everybody.
Relax. We have much to discuss.
Oh.
Discuss.
Set phases to
For example,
I wish
what's
they
your
weren't
safe word?
necessary.
A justified precaution.
I'm sure she's hoping that Riker is a cunning linguist.